Good morning, councillors, staff, those online. Sharon and Chris, thank you. Welcome to this wet day in New Zealand, and welcome everybody here. Declare the meeting open. We've got an apology.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Welcome to this wet day.
Yeah, I'm trying.
All right, okay. We've got an apology from Councillor Steve Wallace. Can I have a mover, please? Mayor Scott, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. No public forum, haven't been advised. Items not on the agenda, I've been not advised of anything. Next item, therefore, is are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared for items on this agenda for decision? None noted. The first item for council to consider is, or committee to consider, is the confirmation of the minutes on pages 5 to 11. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Peter, second. Sorry, Councillor Elizabeth. All those in favour, please say aye. Is against, carried. Our first item for discussion on our reports is item 7.1, our draft Treasury Risk Management Policy on pages 13 to 36. Welcome Sarah and Raj to the table. Sarah, you can do the introductions. Thank you very much.
Morena, Chair Phillip, councillors and staff in the room. Just wanted to make a quick introduction to my fellow colleague, well not colleague, but fellow advisor sitting beside me. This is Raj. He is one of our PwC Treasury advisors that we meet with monthly. He is one of the experts that feed into a lot of the financial treasury reports that we have. He is actually the preparer of the PwC economic update that we present to you within our quarterly reporting. He is going to talk through our treasury and risk policy. We're proposing to make a couple of amendments as we've discussed within our performance reporting, our treasury limits as a result of Three Waters. So I won't steal Raj's thunder because he is far better at explaining this than I am. So without further ado, Raj.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, and thanks for having me. It was a bit of a mission getting down here this morning, but I'm here. As Sarah's mentioned, I've been, PwC has been advising council for a number of years, and I've been involved in that relationship over the past 4 years. Meeting monthly and discussing all things treasury and providing interest rate and funding strategy advice as required as well. If we just go to the next page, I thought the way I'd frame this up, in terms of the changes we're recommending is quite minor in terms of the amount we're kind of doing there, but I thought what I'd do is kind of give an overarching 101 on what the policy is and why it's there, and then run through those two changes and why we're recommending those. So I guess the first thing to cover off is the statutory framework and what the Treasury management objectives are. So if we go to the next slide, Sarah. So I've got a couple of extracts here from the Local Government Act, and I guess they kind of point to council being a prudent financial manager, and I guess that those two keywords of being prudent and that stewardship role that council has in ensuring that the efficient and effective use of the resources for the region, and including the the future management of the assets that council has. And as you'll know, there's a lot of the assets that council manage are intergenerational assets, so long-term intergenerational assets that are going to be used by current ratepayer base, but also future ratepayer base as well. So I guess in that context, you know, a lot of the time debt is used to service those or you know assets and build those assets as needed. But I guess when you look at debt can be a good tool to use for that because you can spread the cost of that over a lifetime of that asset, and it ensures that not the current ratepayer base isn't bearing the cost of the entire asset there. So yeah, I guess there's the coming back to those points there. So being a prudent financial risk manager and taking care and being diligent with any kind of treasury risk management decisions there is essentially the crux of it. So if we go to the next slide. So we've covered the first couple of points off there, and yeah, essentially the third point as well. But yeah, having a balanced budget there, and it all just comes back to the you know being I guess conservative and prudent with any financial risk management decisions we do make, not taking a punt or anything like that. So trying to minimize risk of interest rate adverse impacts to interest rate movements as well, and keeping costs within budgeted amounts, right, really. So that's kind of the context of what the Treasury policy is designed to do, is help provide a framework in which council can operate to minimise the impact of those financial market risks that council is exposed to. So yeah, I can probably skip through there. So this is kind of a bit of an overarching overview of some of the elements that are included within the Treasury policy. And I guess the delegations page sets out the responsibilities for various Treasury personnel and what their role is. And what we try and deliberately do here is have some segregation of duties. So not one person can execute, report and record that a trade, so there's a bit of a delineation of kind of the back office and front office tasks, so that that avoids the risk of error, but also fraud as well. So that's where that kind of segregation of duties and delegations part comes in, and that feeds into the operational risk management piece as well. The two that I want to focus on and where we're recommending slight adjustments to the policy is the funding and liquidity, which I guess is a framework for how council's able to meet its liabilities as it falls due, but also how is that financed, and in terms of ensuring that we're not exposed to concentration risk, i.e. having too much debt maturing in one point in time, and also repricing risk as well, because as we learnt over, I guess in COVID, March 2020, got thrown into lockdown and LGFA margins went flying through the roof. And if you're repricing a large chunk of debt at that point in time, you're exposed to those higher margins. So the funding limits look to help ensure spreading and smoothing of some of those debt maturities, and protects council from some of those potential adverse impacts. Yeah. And then the interest rate risk management policy framework is similar, but looking to protect against adverse movements in the underlying interest rates as well. So the framework there looks to reduce volatility in those rates achieved, whilst looking to keep council's interest costs in line with budget and where possible better. Yeah. So if we skip ahead, so yeah, I've talked a little bit about the funding and liquidity side, but I guess trying to ensure that we have a liquidity buffer in line with the LGFA financial covenants, and we've got debt levels within those covenant levels. And I've talked about the spreading and smoothing of those debt maturities to reduce the refinancing risk. Pre-funding is something that we've used successfully quite a lot, and I guess is seen as good, prudent financial risk management, not waiting until that debt tranche is maturing before refinancing it. So essentially looking to borrow ahead of the maturity and put those funds on deposit, ready to pay back the maturing tranche when that's coming up for maturity. And we've been able to successfully undertake a couple of pre-funding strategies where we did look to pre-fund some of the upcoming debt maturities when margins were lower, only for the margins to spike closer to April, and so it proved to be a good decision, and that's exactly what pre-funding is there to do, is help protect council from having to refinance when there could potentially be an adverse movement in margins. So that's kind of just an example of why we do something like that, as more protection there. I think that's largely what I wanted to cover off actually on this slide. So if we move over to, unless there's any question, feel free to ask questions at any point. Sorry, yeah.
I saw questions as an agenda item, so I was busily saving them. So just on that pre-funding,
Yes.
What mechanisms and tools do you use to actually assess the risk? So you said, recently you'd pre-funded, let's say in December, because it looked like the interest rates might increase in April. So therefore, it made sense to do that. But is there any risk that you could pre-fund at a higher rate and then the rates would drop in April? So obviously we've been successful a couple of times. Yep. But yeah, so what are the guidelines you use for assessing the likelihood of interest rates rising or margins rising?
Yeah, so I guess it's a balance of looking at what markets are doing, and with that's kind of part of our job is to have a view on what we think interest rates and margins are going to be doing, and that's part of it. But also there's the prudent financial risk managing element where you are looking to take a bit of the risk off the table. So what we generally do, we don't say, okay, say you've got 20 mil maturing in a year. We wouldn't say go and do the whole 20 mil now. So it's more kind of taking a portion of it and being kind of prudent about the decision that we're making there, and kind of taking a little bit of risk off the table, and maybe closer to time we might do another chunk to just avoid the risk of margins spiking up at any point in time, or so it leaves a bit of capacity. Hopefully that answered. Cool. So on the interest rate risk management, so we're more focused on medium to longer term forecasts. And we have an interest rate framework in place to help manage the exposure to interest rate movements there. So I guess the long-term debt forecast is a crucial input into that, given the framework applies to that forecast. And I guess how we manage that is by using fixed rate debt, which is through the LGFA, or by using interest rate swaps, which we use to build the fixed interest profile there And like I mentioned, the interest rate risk is managed to the debt forecast. So if we have a scenario where debt forecasts are increasing, then obviously we'll be required to, the policy would require council to have more fixing in place. And if forecasts were to decrease, then vice versa, right? You'd be looking at less. But what the framework does provide is it provides a minimum and maximum threshold. And so there's a level of enforced hedging, but there is then discretion within those bands to lift towards maximums or minimums of policy based on what rates are doing. So there is a level of enforced hedging to provide that layer of kind of comfort or protection in case rates do move around a bit, but then thereafter there is that layer of discretion also provided. So that's kind of a bit about the interest rate risk management policy. So I've just kind of put in a slide here just out of context, just for context really. If there was no hedging in place, a 1% increase in the 90-day BKBM would result in a roughly $720,000 increase in interest costs. So that's why it is important to have a framework in place. So so coming to the Treasury policy review, we did look at the policy last in 2023, and whilst Council may have its annual kind of look at the policy, we have in the policy document that the policy should be reviewed formally once every 3 years, and so we've undertaken that, and we've kind of looked at that with the context of how rates have been volatile for a while since we've kind of come through this COVID era, but also how things may be changing in the sector as well, and in particular looking at the local water done well reforms that are currently ongoing. And as I covered off in the interest rate risk management page, debt forecast is quite a crucial element to determining how much hedging is needing to be done in order to, or what forecast you're managing to, and how much fixing you therefore do. All those decisions are based on that projected debt forecast, and there's quite a bit of uncertainty we're finding at the moment, and it's not just a Tararua District Council thing, it's across the sector. There's a lot of uncertainty as councils try and figure out the debt transfer mechanisms and how debt is going to be transferred to new water entities or for the in-house ones, how that's going to be. Sorry, you've got a question.
So with the three waters, this is probably I probably should know the answer to this question already, but excuse my ignorance. But with our debt, is our debt tied to particular assets or particular stuff, or is the debt to the whole council and we can transfer all the high debt to CCO when we move?
Thank you for your excellent question, Councillor Peter. We have an internal borrowings that are disclosed within our annual report, but we're also monitoring the total debt that we anticipate the waters to be based off our annual plans and our actual performance within our reporting. So I think last calc, I think I had it at 76 million is what we're anticipating to be repaid. But that's obviously, we're still going through the process around what the debt transfer mechanism looks like and firming those numbers up as close to the time as we possibly can, but also feeding information to our Treasury advisors to set us up as a council to be in the best position we can moving forward.
Yeah, so I sort of understand the amount of debt that might be transferred, but obviously we've got, from what you're saying with the Treasury, we've got different debt in different buckets. Is the different buckets allocated to the different parts of the council or not?
We have our debt sits at what we call the treasury activity. So we have the total external borrowings there. From there, we internally borrow for work as required, or we're externally borrowing. So our internal loans as well as our external debt work together and are disclosed within your annual report. But as a project is completed, yes, we're then borrowing. If it's a loan funded project, we do borrow, but we do borrow based on spend. So it's quite a complex little mechanism as we're forecasting our debt levels with our Treasury advisors.
Yeah. So I guess just looking in at the impact of that uncertainty on the interest rate risk management profile and the decisions we make there, it's important to consider what that debt forecast may look like post that transfer. And depending on what that debt transfer mechanism looks like, we may have a very different looking forecast than what we currently have. And so in a period like that, coming back to the prudent financial risk management piece, it is difficult to say, hey, let's go and do a whole heap of hedging when we are unsure that whether that debt is actually going to be there in the future. Those are things to consider, as well as what the debt portfolio composition might look like. And I think, Councillor Peter, you're kind of trying to allude to that, or kind of figure that out. And I think that will kind of reveal itself over the course of time as council works through that. And because it might be like, some councils are choosing, on day one, debt just goes, novates over to the new entity, whereas others are more thinking along the lines of, as debt tranches mature, then it kind of rolls in. So there's a number of different ways you can cut it, and I guess while there is that uncertainty of what it might look like, I think there needs to be a little element of conservatism in terms of decision making around strategies. In that context, I think we've made a couple of small recommendations there, but overall I don't think there's any permanent change to council's risk appetite and any significant change to the policy based off what we've kind of recommended. But I'll just run through what our two recommendations are. So it's on the right hand side, you can see the policy framework. We've made no change to that, but what we have decided to add in is a couple of bullet points. So you can see on the left hand side there. So essentially saying that in complying with interest rate limits, consideration must be given to local water done well and the impact on longer term debt forecasts, interest rate risk position and strategy. So it's just highlighting it there that that's something to be mindful of, and it then further builds on that to say any policy limit non-compliance that does not self-correct in 90 days must be approved by council, as is currently in the policy. But where the non-compliance specifically relates to local water done well matters, the breach is accepted and retrospectively reported to council. So it's just giving that level of is the question, is it? Yeah.
I've got a question on this one. All right. Yes, retrospective. It's sort of like it's easier to ask for forgiveness rather than approval. And I wonder, both asking you and Sarah, is it possible then to actually give potentially a heads up that we are likely to exceed the policy and sort of give us more information before? And what I have seen in other councils is where that's likely to happen, it's debated. I don't want to give it just solely to the Risk and Assurance Committee, but the Risk and Assurance debates the risks, and we recommend to council that we note that we're going outside of policy because of X, Y and Z and ask for their approval rather than waiting 90 days after it's actually happened. Yeah, I think leaving it 90 days is a formal bit, but putting in there is where possible, that we actually should be forecasting what's likely to occur and giving everyone a heads up.
Sorry, just to clarify on that point around the position that does not self-correct in 90 days, you don't wait the 90 days until you outline it. It's more kind of if you have, we have a reporting tool that we use to manage the risks, and if that tool is showing non-compliance, we forward project that. If it doesn't self-correct within the 3 months as you project the position forward, then that kind of highlights that there needs to be some corrective action taken, because sometimes there's just a gap in the portfolio and it self-corrects after a month, in which case no action required. So that 90 days is more if you have 3 consecutive months of non-compliance, you're having to, and it doesn't self-correct, then you're looking to put together a strategy to gain policy compliance again.
I'd just add into that, we at our monthly Treasury meetings are doing this exercise, so we would be in a position to bring this forward. Should it be out of cycle with our Risk and Assurance Committee, we could look to take it to the full council meeting, just to give you that extra reassurance I think you're looking for.
All I'm concerned about is it looks like you were asking for forgiveness, right? If you know we're going to be, I agree with the self-correcting, right? No problem with that. But if you know you're going to be outside of when you do your modelling, right? In 3 months' time, we know we're going to be outside for more than a period of time. That would be the time to bring it to council rather than to waiting for it to be actually outside of council. Because the way I read this, it reads like you've got to be outside before you report it to council, not that you're going to be outside of council.
Hi, I just want to wrap you all in together, because you're all saying the same thing, but the summary being that we've adjusted the policy to be able to take into account the transition of waters, whereas before the policy wouldn't have allowed that flexibility. Once we have the directive from the CCO board of how that transfer of debt will be, novation, cash, or after as each maturity comes to play in our own books, we will then be able to take a view on what our books will look like. So what we've done at the moment is created that flexibility to say we may need to cash up into the shorter buckets, because if we invest too far out now, it will go against what we think will be the best approach for the waters. So we've really given ourselves 2 or 3 months over the short-term period of that flexibility, which we will be monitoring and reporting when we go outside our policy, and with the view of taking it immediately into a context of certainty once we know how that debt is being moved. Does that answer where you are now?
It doesn't. It does, I think it's. I agree totally with the strategy of what you're trying to achieve. There's no. It's about when the uncertainty for me in this. It's about when do we actually report to governance that we're actually outside of policy? Is it when we've been outside of policy, or when we're going to be outside of policy? Because to me, it's that retrospective reporting to council implies it's after we've gone outside of policy for 90 days, not that we're going to be outside of policy for 90 days.
Our operational intention was to report when we are going to. That was our operational intention for internal reporting.
I think if that wording could be included within the policy, I would feel very comfortable.
Okay, yep, we'll do.
So I guess if we move over to the next slide, very similarly similar to the last slide. So and for the same reasons, really, we've added 2 bullet points. In complying with the funding limits, consideration must be given to local water done well, the impact on longer-term debt forecasts, the agreed debt transfer mechanism, and the ongoing debt funding risk position and strategy. And then further builds on that, any policy limit non-compliance that does not self-correct in 90 days must be approved by council where the non-compliance relates specifically to local water done well matters, the breach is accepted and retrospectively reported to council. But what I'm hearing is probably get rid of that word retrospectively. It would probably provide a bit more comfort. Yep. But yeah, that's kind of the two key changes in the policy. Pass back over to you unless any questions.
Any other questions on the policy per se? You'd be disappointed, Sarah, if I didn't have any more, wouldn't you? So a couple of questions. Just on page 5 of the draft policy, page, where am I? 25 of the agenda. I'm just a bit confused as to council may act as a financial guarantee to council-controlled organisations. Understand that. Then we've got council. This is where I'm confused. We say we will guarantee to council-controlled organisations, and then the next line down we're saying council is not allowed to guarantee loans to council-controlled organisations. Can you just clarify what we're trying to achieve there?
Oh, so I think. Sorry. Yeah. The difference being the council-controlled organisations versus council-controlled trading organisations.
I understand that,
yeah.
but we've also got council-controlled trading organisations. The second to last new line.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, I might need to double check that. What's going on there?
Check that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on. Oh. Thank you, Councillor Sharon. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Chair Philip. You're bang on the money when it comes to. I had a question around 4.6, exactly what you were suggesting, because I was a bit confused because in that on page 25, you've deleted the ability for council to guarantor to the CCTOs, but you still keep referring to it further through the policy. And I mean, you've asked one of the questions that I had. I'm a bit confused about that. But what are some of our current examples of where council has guaranteed some of these organisations, clubs, trusts, etc.? I'm a little bit dodgy as to what are we holding our hand up to be the backup for versus what we're allowed to be holding the backup for.
Through you, Chair Philip, excellent question, Councillor Wards. Council does not provide a guarantor to any entities outside of our LGFA debenture trust deed that we have, where we are a guarantor as part of our borrowings within that, which we'll talk about when we get to Beth's paper.
Okay.
But we do not provide any lending guarantors outside of that.
Okay. Thank you. And simply please, Sarah, what does this particular clause in our policy mean when it comes to our water CCO?
My understanding, and I'm not fully involved in this, but my understanding is that all councils within the YT partnership will be required to become a guarantor for the YT partnership. And this is, I think, what we're trying to achieve with this clause is to allow us to do so. But that's all going to come forth with when we bring information around our debt transfer mechanism and all of that wonderful stuff.
Thanks for allowing that question, Chair Philip.
When I read that clause, I read the council-controlled organisations as being a heading and the council-controlled trading organisations as being a heading. And therefore, the clause is applied to those, so I think it's a formatting.
Thank you. Any other questions? So if we go to the resolution, I've got a suggestion. I'm very happy with through 1 to 4. The only issue I have is item 5, and I think the word is we recommend the policy, subject to the minor amendments, is adopted by council. Because legally, council needs to adopt the policy, not just approve the policy. I note that in the document, the chief executive has approved it, where it's actually legally, the council is required to adopt the policy. Now, the good news is, this is one of the few policies we don't actually have to consult on.
If you don't mind, Chief Phillip, I'll just add to this. We will be bringing the Treasury policy back as part of the long-term plan process as well, once we've done a bit more work around our financial strategy and all of those things, because those numbers feed into the limits that we put into our policy. So it will come back again. This is just to help us in the short term.
I would have thought you would have actually already taken that into account, Sarah. Thank you. Cheeky. I know. Right. With that, just noting those changes, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Oh, Councillor Sharon,
I'm
thank
happy
you.
to.
All right. Seconded, Councillor Peter. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Thank you very much, Raj, for your report and your presentation, and safe travels.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, guys.
Right. Our next item is the Audit New Zealand fee proposal on page 37 to 73. Some background. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair Phillip. I'll take the report as read. I'll just highlight a couple of things. Unfortunately, Fiona, our Audit Director, was unable to be here today. Her fee proposal is unusual for what we would usually expect. Usually at this time we're getting the fee proposal for a 3-year period. Within her letter, she's provided us with the uncertainty that's taking place in local government and the uncertainty around the work that they'll be required to do moving forward. They've just proposed a 1-year fee change, and it's a minimal fee adjustment. So just any questions?
I had a number on questions, I'm afraid to say, about her proposal, in her proposal. So if we go to, actually the proposed audit fees, so this is on page 43 of our report. There's just a typo at the very top there where she says our proposed fees for the next 3 audits. So this is actually the only proposed fee for 1 audit. Then in the note underneath, it says the note for the, she's not here to answer, of course, so these might be just points you need to raise back with her. 2025 actual audit fees charged were $256,000 compared to our 2025 audit costs of $295, but in the table it says the audit costs were $260 and $260,445. So those numbers didn't actually balance. And then
Sorry, the 260,000 is in the 2025 budgeted fees. The 2025, the next column over, is the actual fees, which is where the 256 is that she's referencing down in her note.
Yeah, but so what's the, sorry, yes, the 256 is the actual, okay, you said, compared, well, where was, yes, okay, right, so my mistake, but where does the 295 come in?
So the 200, through your Chair Phillip, the 295, she is just alluding us to the actual fees that were incurred at Audit New Zealand's end to complete our 2025 annual report.
Right.
After they have done an exercise to eliminate, which she's trying to explain in her blurb,
Yeah.
The actual fee charged is 256.
That's right, right, okay. Cool. My misunderstanding. But then in the table in 5.1, she talks about total increase in audit fees of 7,063. But in the table above, in 5, it looked to me like there's a $10,000 increase. So it goes from 256 to 266 in the top table, but the second table is only showing $7,000 worth of increase in fees. So where's the extra 3,000? So
I haven't actually done the math on the table, so I can't comment on it. But if I'm just looking at the moment, the OAG ASQS charge has increased by, I would say, approximately, if I do the math roughly, by the 1,500. So then I would expect the 5,500 to be captured within that 227 to the 235 line.
yeah,
Oh,
Can I,
Phillips.
can I help? I wonder whether the difference is actually between the budgeted fees, not the actual fees charged. Because if you look at the actual fees, so the budgeted fees was 260, and it's not 7,000 either. But I agree, right?
No.
It's a
the numbers don't match. That was
they don't, yeah,
that was my-
which is it's just confusing, right?
Yeah.
I think the comfort we can take is it's a small number.
Yeah, I absolutely, but they are auditors, so that was what struck me, I suppose, when I was reading this, and I'm going, anyway. So
Find this feedback too here, don't you worry.
apart from that, all good. Okay.
Just right there. Also, I'm not sure whether it's been announced by our audit director that there is going to be a change in structure of the Audit New Zealand. So the new Auditor General, been in the job almost coming up 12 months now, in July this year, is bringing Audit New Zealand and OAG back into the same organisation, whereas previously it was separated out into a business unit. And that did create some inefficiencies, particularly for where technical was involved, that what would happen is Audit New Zealand had their own technical team, and then because the Auditor General signed off the opinion, it would also have to go to the OAG technical opinion. And sometimes there'd be argy-bargy between the two technical teams. But by bringing those two technical groups together, there's going to be some efficiencies when technical stuff happens, which doesn't normally happen in most local authorities, but I've been on the receiving end of a couple of those technical reviews, and they do take some time, and they do cost. But I think that's... So we might not actually have Audit New Zealand as the provider on logo, but we will still have the same director and the same team. Just so I'd clarify that. So if you see a surprise, it's a different heading in the future, the committee understand why. Any other questions? All right, so if we go back to page 37, we've got a couple of recommendations. We've got there. Do I have a mover for those? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Elizabeth. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's against carried. Next item is on page 73, similar, but it relates to the debenture trust audit. Thank you. Take your report as read. Any highlights or further information?
Morning, everyone. I don't have much else to add to the report apart from that in regards to the engagement letter, the period that the letter covers is a 3-year period. So it covers 30 June 2026 right through to 30 June 2028. So that's in line with audit cycle of when they appoint their audit director. So it's every 3 years so that we have the same auditor on our audit, and that's capped at 6 years. But yeah, other than that, and then another change to the audit plan on page 96, just around the revaluation of assets. The audit plan states that we were going to revalue the infrastructure assets as at April 2022, 2026, and that should be March 2026. So I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions? Oh, I've got some, but not right. Maybe not for you. Oh, it's just on the reval. Since March has whistled by, how are we going on that?
So the team is currently tidying up the bits and pieces for our external valuer, and they are preparing the report with the delivery date set of the 27th of April. So we are currently on track.
So we're expecting a smooth audit this year, are we, team? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any further questions? Anything from the team online? We go to the recommendations there. Do I have a mover? Oh, I'll move. Right. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next item is our water rates correction on page 115. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Beth.
I'm just going to go get my laptop. Right, I'll take the paper as read. Just as a summary, if you remember when we came through with the final audit on the annual report, there had been a discrepancy in the report, in the audit. The audit had found a discrepancy, shall I say, between the rates resolution and the fees and charges publication of rounding of $20. Which then meant that the invoicing and the billing that had been run for the fixed fee across our water billing had been the incorrect amount. We've been through, and in summary, we have rerun all that billing, applied the additional credit to those affected customers, and it was all resolved and mailing to all those customers by the end of January. So this report is an update to confirm that those things were taken through and finalised. Any questions?
I've got one, or two actually. On item 3, para 3.6, right? Are we expecting, you're saying there is 6th of August 24, the rates resolution was presented to audit for sign-off. I wouldn't have expected the auditors to actually have validated our resolution. And my other question I have is, should we actually therefore have, what changes and processes has council implemented so it won't happen again? I'm aware of a number of councils that do get their rates resolutions legally reviewed on a regular basis, not every year, and I wonder if that's something that officers have considered.
Sarah might want to talk to the rates resolution auditing. From our perspective, the mitigations that have been put in place is the 3 reports, the annual report, the rates resolution and the fees and charges. Those 3 publications will be reviewed in, what's the word I'm looking for? Altogether. Sorry, can't think of a nice word for that. Altogether, all at the same time, by the rates team leader, technical leader, and the new role being Sarah, being the finance and revenue manager, and myself. We will all review those tandemly together at the same time to make sure that they're cross-checked before they go in. The other very strong mitigating factor is, as we've indicated when we did the 2027 annual plan, that we want to be well and truly doing final numbers and indicating final numbers to council well before final reports need to be actually approved by council, so that we don't have last minute changes, which in the financial transaction world means it opens up a huge amount of risk of error coming through as a result of those last minute changes and the fast moving response that people will need to do just increases human error. So we will be hopefully indicating the same way with our annual plans, our annual reports and our LTP processes well and truly in time to give us plenty of time to be reviewing these and sharing. And I'll just let Sarah update on that other point you made.
Thank you, Tracy. Chair Phillip, I would just add to that comment on 3.6 is referencing Audit New Zealand, as part of their sign-off for the long-term plan, have to review the rates resolution for its compliance. They're not checking the numbers at that point in time. But further to the risk mitigations Tracy's talked about, Audit New Zealand will be reviewing our rates resolution this year before we take it to Council for adoption as another sign-off.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon?
Oh, I think Sarah's just answered my question, because I was a little concerned. I appreciate there's been a new role created, and Tracy, you've succinctly said that putting all the four aspects together in front of the whole team at the same time. What I'm trying to get my head around is the mistake has been made, the repayments have been made. What's the time now when we come to issue our next lot of rates? Is everything behind us and is everything sorted, or is there any sort of carryover into any of the periods for the 600 ratepayers that were affected? I'm probably not being clear. I'm trying to understand. We've addressed it. We've put in steps. I'm really pleased, Sarah, that you've said that the auditor will also do a sign off as well. But when will we know? What rates period will we know it's all clear, dusted, everyone's sweet now?
So the billing for the 4 quarters of 2004 to 2005 has been rerun. The billing for the first quarter of 2006 has, sorry, did I get that wrong?
26.
All of last year billing has been rerun every quarter. The first quarter of this current year's billing has been rerun. And the second quarter was amended and fixed so it ran correctly. So it's been running correctly to our ratepayers since the second quarter of this year. Also, just want to point out that the rates resolution was reviewed very well. It's the correlation between the two reports which fell over. So we do need to make sure that we have these reports all together when we're reviewing them. Because that's when you pick up the inconsistency across reports, where one report may have an update where the update did not successfully flow through to another one.
Right. Thanks for that clarification, Dean.
Any other questions? There are. Miss Scott, welcome back. I know you've had some other duties which you've had to attend to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and sorry I missed some of this presentation. We had to step out for an emergency management meeting. It's more of a comment, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you for the report. I think that level of transparency is really important for it to be reported through to this committee. I know that we've certainly had some discussions about this, so I don't have any other questions apart from thanking you for the transparency of the report.
So unfortunately I was going to ask you if you could want to move the resolution, but you haven't been here for the whole debate, so probably inappropriate, yeah. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Seconded, Councillor Elizabeth. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thank you. Thank you, both Tracy and Sarah. Our next item then is the Terror Alliance Quarterly Report. Thank you, Dan. Take your report as read. Any key highlights or further information you want to bring to our small committee today?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mayor Scott and councillors. The only update apart from what's in the report is that at the time of writing the report, we didn't have an update from the principals group as we hadn't had a meeting at the time, but we had a meeting on the 10th of April, which I'll provide more details in the next report. But a couple of items that were discussed at their meeting is in this report, such as the fuel crisis that everyone's dealing with at the moment and just how we're managing that. And also as part of the quarterly performance framework update is just getting the annual strategy meeting arranged. So we're looking at having that in June. But apart from that, I hope you take the report as read and take any questions.
It's a little bit tongue in cheek, but we're taking the guidance from Council and Downer, and sorry, this is 8.2 on page 124. We're taking the guidance from Council and Downer and have put into place interim measures to protect and conserve diesel and fuel use. Could we make that permanent? It's just was that one. So back to a real question though. 9.5, the ISO 55001. I nearly got that right when I was talking to my wife about it this morning. I said 55501, so it's only a couple of numbers out. And I know that there's already been some communication about it out into the marketplace, but how do we actually, I see this as being, a fabulous piece of work that you guys have done, and how do we really promote that in a way that the community can understand, and is there any way that we can put a dollar value, even if it's a savings in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the term of the thing by having this asset management strategy in place, I really think it's something that we should be really proud of and we should really be pushing hard. So I'd like you to go away and think about how could we try and quantify this, and even if it was a value range, of something, because I think, this is really important, and I'd love to see if we can do something like that. So any thoughts on that?
Through Mr. Chair, so for the ISO 55001, we are talking between our stakeholder communications manager, Malua, and the asset team, we are talking about how we can sort of show the tangible outcomes or, the benefit that the community gets from, from us being in that position. So I could provide an update at the next meeting about what we're going to do if we haven't already put some public comms out since before then. And just in regards to fuel crisis, so the key part to that is around the levels. So looking at with the government levels, what we're going to do when the levels change. The key thing that we have been considering is what impact it's going to have on our renewals program if we had to finish the renewals program early, or stop the renewals program early, and just focus on delivering priority works, so that we're not delivering non-essential services that's having putting the local supplier under stress. But the timing's quite good because we're at the end of the season, so the fact that we're going into our quieter period now, apart from dealing with some severe weather events, that pressure's going to come off from our end anyway.
Thanks. Councillor Sharon, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Phillip. It kind of a bit of a segue from what Councillor Peter was reflecting on the value of us promoting the benefits of this accreditation to our community. I watched the community board meeting yesterday, and Mayor Scott may be able to provide some input here. I think one of the frustrations that our community have is regarding the implementation and the action around CRMs. So in conversations with Malua, Dan, I'd be curious to understand the comms around how that ISO accreditation allows us to close the loop for our customers is really, really important. So I'd be keen to hear if in those discussions with Malua and the plans that you may have going forward as to how the promotion of closing that loop of once the ratepayer has complained about, piece eroding or whatever, how the accreditation process and the steps that you need to take to close that loop can be reflected back to our ratepayer. I don't know if you want to add a little bit more to that, Mayor Scott, but it was quite an issue at the community board yesterday. And I think we have an opportunity here, as Councillor Peter is suggesting.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for for mentioning that. I think that it's wider than the alliance side, but absolutely, if it's something we can work on as part of that, it would be helpful. I think it is something across the board that could be reputationally enhancing, finding ways to close that gap. So I absolutely support what the Deputy Mayor has said, and have already had some early conversations with the Chief Executive regarding that.
Sorry, can I just comment on that one? So just, in regards to CRM, regarding our responses, we are, without doing something separate to what Wrestle Council are looking at, I'm a bit mindful of that, but we are reviewing how we respond to CRMs and what kind, and trying to improve on the information that we share with with the community when they put in a request like that. We do rely a lot on our operational teams to provide enough information to them when they are contacting the customers back. So I'm actually working with Malloy at the moment in regards to whether we even look at like email responses that we can actually put a lot more information in and a bit more standardised. So yeah, just things like that we're exploring. So yeah.
All I can say is, from my experience, CRMs, all right, are often a bone of contention with the community, right? Right? And if you can close that loop, even better, all right? Any further questions? So we've got a recommendation there that basically the report be received and adopted. Is it appropriate that we just congratulate the Alliance team on the accreditation of the ISO standard? Is that appropriate, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move recommendation 1.1, but also add in a second motion that the committee congratulates the Alliance on their accreditation.
I'm happy to second that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Councillor Sharon. Councillor Peter beat you by a whisker.
Okay.
You can, if you want to, Councillor Sharon, you can speak to the motion.
I would just concur with everything that's said. This is so much hard work. I used to be an auditor back in the day and had to implement another set of standards under ISO, and this is a huge achievement, So any little way we can put the ripples out around how this will set us up well and truly for the future needs to be done. So there we go. I fully support the motion, and I'm an aye when you get to the vote.
Okay, all right. Any further comments? All right, all those in favour, please say aye. Noting Sharon has already said aye. Right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, through Mr. Chair. I just want to add one last thing as well. I just wanted to let everyone here know that Sally Boy, our performance manager, is finishing with us this week. She's moving to Tauranga for family reasons, so luckily she is getting a transfer, so staying within the Downer business and going to a similar role in Tauranga, which is great. But just on a note, with the ISO accreditation and also a lot of the other successes in the Alliance, a lot of credit Sally deserves a lot of credit for that, because she is the quiet achiever in the background that does all the coordinating between the team to pull us all together and make sure we're prepared for things like this. So I just want to wish Sally all the best and thank her for the effort, and
thank you for that. All the best, and you're going to a great location, right? Thank you, Dan and team. Next item is assurance management report. Oh, risk management report on page 127. I said it was going to be a long agenda. Right? I'd have to get through it. Right, 127. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair Phillip. Morena tātou. So risk management report, I'll take it as read. I just want to make a comment about this. We're trying to make it as live and as possible, and with the amount of risk change that's happening. You'll see that we are not always complete or up to date in our registers and what we're saying, but by bringing it, it means there's an opportunity to have a conversation. Yes, I'll take it as read, and if there's any questions.
On section 3.3 on page 128, talking about the fuel costs, do we have any indication? I mean, the fuel cost increase is obvious. To me, it seems to be that we must have a lot of fuel costs, but I haven't seen a dollar value and what the actual, risk is to council. So if the diesel prices, for instance, were to stay where they are, does that increase our fuel costs from $20,000 to $40,000 a month, or is it increasing it from $5,000 to $10,000, or what's the actual dollar value that we're facing as a risk? So understand the risk, but what's the actual financial implication?
Through you, Chair. Hamish, what was that figure you said again?
So it was 10,000 a month, it's now 20.
Right, so it's doubled to about 20,000 a month. In the risk and assurance frame too, so one of the things that we've instituted from this week is we're now doing weekly reporting. So I've asked for that to come through. So we're looking at whether how our consumption is tracking, up or down, but also then how we're tracking against budget as well. So we'll have a live weekly information source to make sure that we have any early signals in terms of overall budget and impact, as well as how we're behaving as an organisation as we kind of look at this issue and how we seek to manage it as well.
Councillor Chris, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just had a quick one, just in regards to the fuel. It's obviously not just a direct fuel cost increase, but we're also looking at other charges like that are going to start to increase. Are we starting to see that in any of our budgets for our projects and other things that we've got going on? I would just see that there would be a risk of things increasing across the board. If there's anything further, we've seen anything yet.
Morning, everybody. Thank you. Through you, Chair, Philip. So a lot of our contracts have fuel adjustment factors built into them as part of the contract itself. So looking at separating out the additional increase, and we've had a couple of contractors approach us in that vein. We're certainly seeing some, early warning from some of our suppliers that the prices will go up. Certainly things that have any sort of petroleum-based like plastics, pipes, that sort of thing. So we're considering how we approach that, but just managing the budgets to the end of the financial year and just adjusting the workflows to manage to make sure that we fit within the money that we have available at this stage rather than going over budgets. So, thank you.
Any more questions on fuel or on, no more questions on fuel? Let's move to the rest of the report. Thanks, Hamish. Any other questions on the report? It's more of a comment, right? I'm really concerned about the backlog or the tsunami of legislation that we have already highlighted in the report, right? That I note in the report that this the Local Government Systems Improvement Bill, as of yesterday or the day before, still actually hasn't got to the House, right? It's still, I don't know where it is on the queue, it was number 42 a couple of weeks ago, right? And what I'm really concerned about, all the other bills that are in train, there's going to be a tsunami of legislative changes before August when the House rises. And my view of rush legislation is always poor legislation. and we just need to look at the Water Services Act, and which was rushed legislation, the whole, right? The confusion that still reigns within the Water Services Act and the which we're a part of, and how that actually then plays out for councils going forward, particularly, and I refer to it as the RMA suite of changes, which to me is, significant. Mayor Scott, my apologies.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I did just want to make a quick comment on the legislation or legislative changes on the agenda as well. And there are a few risks. One of them is going to be financial, particularly when we are coming into a rates capping environment. But to be able to deliver the changes as listed, who knows, they may well change as they run through the process. Some of them are more advanced than others. There is also a suspicion that I have that some of these may move through the process quite quickly, particularly with the way that the polls are looking. The Systems Improvement Bill, as an example, I've been keeping a very, very close eye on that. I've heard public comments. I think I can understand why that's still sitting towards the bottom of the order paper. I heard public comments from the Minister, who is looking at incorporating some changes to committee structures and who can sit on committees in decision-making roles based on some of the controversy in Northland, making public comments that he is already developing cabinet papers to be able to potentially make some changes into the Systems Improvement Bill, and he expects that to take around a month. Once that's done, because it is highly political, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets introduced under urgency. So this could happen fairly quickly. The only reason why I say that, who knows what they'll decide to do, is we have a tsunami which could also then cause an avalanche. So we need to be prepared for that.
Thank you, Mayor Scott, I appreciate it. That to me is it's a significant risk, right? And I was looking at the calendar before that we've got our next committee meeting on the 21st of July. We may not have certainty even before then, because as Mayor Scott has alluded to, there's probably going to be a tsunami which is going to cause us an avalanche after that date, right? And I would say that August is going to be bedlam. I wouldn't want to be an MP because I think they're going to be there all hours. So I am very concerned because I was talking to an MP yesterday on the flight down, when they were flight up to Auckland actually, and I mentioned something about the getting rid of part of the RMA. Oh, that didn't come up in our submissions at all. I didn't realise how important that was. Right? Okay, so that's the level of understanding with rush legislation. It doesn't affect this council, but it does affect a number. So, all right, so with no further comments and questions, can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Peter. Second, Mayor Scott. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Now the Assurance Management Report on page 141. Thanks, Stephen, again.
Thanks, Chair Phillip. I'll take the report as read. I guess something that's been pleasing, very pleasing for me in this report is the amount of grey. Grey is our closed out. So just remembering that what we report is we drop the grey ones off, the meeting afterwards. So it's only showing you the current, but yeah, there's a lot of actions that have been able to be closed out this quarter.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Stephen, thanks for that. I was going to comment on the same. It is really pleasing to see us jumping through these. I also just, Mr. Chair, wanted to quickly acknowledge Stephen as well for coming in today, having been our controller through the weather event last night, and having worked the day before, very, very, very grateful for one, your report, but also for you being here, even though I told you to go home, being here to present the report. So thank you, Steve.
I had no idea. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor Peter.
Yeah, no, it's really good to see this report, with so much completed, and also the revision I noticed. I think you've set where you have revised, you seem to have given yourself reasonable timeframes rather than us seeing, because I think one of the comments we had in our last meeting was that we were pushing out month by month by month. Now you're giving yourself 3 months or 6 months or whatever to actually do that. So we're not going to hopefully see those multiple, revisions of due dates. So well done.
I was going to comment on that, and I was actually going to put the Chief Executive on the spot. All right? And Mr. Chief Executive, we've got a whole lot of dates here in the future. Are you confident you've got the right resources to deliver on time? It was unfair to ask Stephen that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the spirit that question was asked, I have nothing to at this moment, which would lead me to believe we can't, and I'll be driving to ensure that we meet the dates that we are articulating to the committee.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, he's obviously learnt well previously. Yeah, look, I understand. Right, there's a bit of tongue in cheek, but I think the issue here is this does require resources, and we need to make sure that the resources are actually in place. But weather events do happen. Tsunami of legislation which causes avalanches do happen. So I think we just need to sort of be aware that things may change. And thank you again, Stephen, for updating the dates. If we move the dates out any further, right, because of an event or something, is it possible to also, right, to say what are is there any risk in actually moving the date out? I think that's the role of this committee, right? I think that's a useful, without placing too much burden on you. Things do change, and we need to be cognizant of that. Things do change. And is that your out, Mr. Chief Executive?
I'd just like to add, and just really to acknowledge what you're saying, Chair. I think one of the key challenges we've got right now, we've got all that legislative change that's coming. We are in the process of transferring over to a new water services entity, and we're seeking to go through the process of striking an LTP. And whilst trying to get those numbers where they need to be, there's some assumptions in there because we don't have all the detail about what will be expected of us. So it is going to be a very tight process. We've acknowledged that certainly around the ELT table, and we will keep an eye on that. And it will mean that we're probably going to need to be quite nimble up until the last minute because we could have curveballs thrown at us, as I'm sure you know.
I would rephrase your statement if I can. You will have curveballs thrown at you, right? We've got to expect those curveballs, right? And I acknowledge Three Waters. Thank you, Hamish, for the conversations we had. What's said in the car this morning stays in the car because I've got a broken wing. I'm restricting my driving, but the amount of work that is required and the complexity of the Three Waters should be keeping all of us awake at night, because what I'm concerned about is because we've got so much to do, we're going to lose the potential for any innovation. And that to me is the biggest risk with Three Waters. We've got an opportunity to do it, but because we're under such a tight time frame to do it, that the time to take out over developing innovation may be lost. And I just want to highlight that to the whole team, right? Because it's a massive job, right? Which we've noted the risks in here. Thank you, Stephen. But maybe to me, as one of the risks is we actually don't innovate because of the amount of work, that we actually don't have the opportunity to innovate like we could have if we'd actually had a bit more time and capacity. But it is what it is. All right. So no further questions or comments. Got a recommendation there that we receive and adopt the report. Do I have a mover? Oh, thank you, Councillor Peter. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Elizabeth. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next report is our Health, Safety and Wellbeing Management Report. Thank you, Gillian.
Morena Chair and Mayor Scott, councillors and staff in the room, and see you. I'll take the report as read, but I would like to just share with you some information that we have received since the report has been written relating to number 8, contractor health and safety audits. So the timeline provided to the team was quite tight, so I'd like to identify that. It was a bit of an ask for them. Our teams do use different platforms and systems to gather the data that works best for their department, but we have received some in, and in that timeframe we requested, which was from January to 31 March, 20 contractors were audited and 26 audits were conducted on those contractors. So some contractors were audited more than once. And all passed with great comments. So hopefully that gives some assurance that they are happening. They're just happening in different systems throughout council. So other than that, I will be happy to take any questions and hopefully provide some answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Sharon, looks like you're coming on screen. Have you got a question?
I am. You've worked out my technique.
Absolutely.
Philip. Thank you, Gillian, for this report. I am curious to understand on where is it now? The table on page 155 and 156. You've identified there are some overdue risks that haven't been dealt with, and the one I'm a little concerned about is the overdue one where managers are yet to sign off the prioritisation of workloads around stress and fatigue for our teams. But I appreciate that there might have been some barriers to getting a couple of these overdue ones completed. What is the process? How much priority gets put on this, or are we likely to see this just keep appearing, or what steps have been put in place to make sure that those managers are signing off, that the some of the vehicle user policy, the overdue de-escalation training, etc. How does that get prioritised, and what process and steps are you and Stephen and the CEO able to put in place to make sure that they get into the compliant box, really?
Great question. And I'll answer this one. Thanks, Sharon. As kind of the overall owner of all of our risk registers, and the example you gave around the overdue reports around prioritisation of workloads, how we manage the register is that we use a software tool, ProMap, to do that. And that risk, that control is assigned to every people leader in council. So when we're saying it's overdue, it's not saying that all of our people leaders haven't signed this off as compliant, but some of them haven't. So what we regularly do is check on progress of sign-offs for all of these, and where there are issues identified by managers or these overdues, we prompt those back to the owner of the risk to follow up. So I think what we're trying to do with these registers is bring them a lot closer to live, and so we
Yeah.
will have a little bit of ducking in and out of compliant. But I guess it does show that, you know, from time to time, other workers taking priority over signing the
Yeah.
rest off. But that we'll get back round and catch those up as well. But it is there to sort of help you see a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate, Stephen. I just, if there is an ongoing trend, I'm curious to understand, and I get that from the comment that you made, is that it can get escalated up, that if there are a group or one particular manager that isn't following through and doesn't give a toss about the stress and fatigue of their team, that there is a mechanism through which that is captured and dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key part of the risk management
Yeah.
framework is escalation, and I think ultimately through to the committee here.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just a question more in curiosity. It was on item 92, which was driving, and this is terribly operational, but I was interested in staff that perhaps have low safety scores on e-roads being, and it's non-compliant because it's offering driver training as one of the controls. Generally, and I've worked a little bit in this space, driver training can be very, very good, but if there's low safety scores on e-roads, it's usually more of a management issue in making sure that expectations are clear and that they're followed. Are we also, from a safety perspective, enforcing safe driving when we get reports of poor driving or poor safety through e-roads? Are we going through steps, training aside, to enforce expectations?
Thank you for that question, Mayor Scott. So we have systems in place that issue reports through to management or people leaders for overspeeds, harsh braking and idling. And there is a process in place in which managers initially, depending on the level, the severity of the issue, manage that with their staff members. So it's certainly not something that's just left to coast, but we are formalising our escalation framework for people leaders at the moment to use as a guide.
No, that does make sense. Thank you, Sandy. I suppose just a follow-up to that, are you comfortable that your management of that and the controls around it are getting the desired results and controlling the risk?
Yeah, so since we did start to have a bit more of a focus on it probably about 8 months ago, we've definitely seen a real reduction in overspeeds, and our safety star average has improved throughout the organisation. So yes, good results.
Thank you, Gillian, for the comment on the audits of the contractors. I look forward to the next meeting. Right, I know it's a challenge, right? But I think it's really, really important. Stephen?
I did want to actually comment, if that's all right, Chair Phillip. I'm just going to put my assurance hat on for a moment rather than my health and safety hat, and just thank the committee for the question about contractor audits, because when you ask us good questions that we need to go away and find the answers for and find that there is some work to be done, that's really helpful for the organisation. So yeah, really good, and that's highlighted some things that we were aware of, but it's really made it a priority. So yeah, a good result. Thank you.
Thank you. I always try and add value where possible, right? I don't want to add a huge amount of work, right? But I want to, and I think that's really important. Thank you for that, Stephen, because that to me gives this committee some real value to actually asking those relevant and appropriate questions. Right. So no further questions or comments. I will move the recommendation on page 153. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Next item, 163, the due diligence report. Thank you. Gillian.
Thank you again. I will take this as read. To be fair, I was just the one that put a lot of this information together for my other colleagues, Stephen and obviously Sandy, here to contribute their vast knowledge to. So feel free to direct any questions to potentially not me. Thank you.
I thought it was really important as an opening comment, before I ask you any more, is that we've had the new Chief Executive endorse the report. Thank you, Corin. And not the policy, thank you. Right, any questions or comments?
I just wanted to acknowledge.
No. Oh, yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge on at point 4 that there is a bit of a formatting issue in the report. So just that if I just maybe read that first para, what it was intended to say in respect to the health, safety and wellbeing strategy, is that the health, safety and wellbeing strategy 2026 to 2029 attached is a key component of the due diligence plan, providing the overarching framework that connects governance expectations with operational delivery. It supports the committee's role in verifying that appropriate systems, controls and continuous improvement mechanisms are in place. And then that top line that you can't see on the table under 3.6 reads, review and endorse the Health and Safety Governance Charter. Oh no, sorry, above that, endorse the due diligence plan and confirm activities.
Thank you. I did note the hieroglyphics. I did try to. Well, actually, I noticed that item was completed, so I thought that was. And again, right, I think we've got a pretty heavy workload in terms of the things that need to be done here. And again, if I just make that comment for the previous report, if things, things happen, right? If they move out, if we just note, like you've done elsewhere, that we couldn't achieve it because X, Y, and Z, and this was and there was no risk or useful. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just on the policy, thank you for providing that. I did want to make a really quick comment on page 179, which is supporting a just and fair culture, which I'm a very, very, very big supporter of. And actually that's where my question beforehand on the driving and the management of unsafe driving practices really fell in, because although I support this, the only way to make that work as a policy effectively is if we are monitoring things that perhaps are on a reckless scale or other pieces, because the rest of it will fall down if we're not playing our part. So it's probably going to be some questions that I'll be asking in future reports. So as a bit of a signal, where there is behaviour that is reckless, that we can easily identify, it's making sure that we are following that up, managing it, and that there's accountability in that. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you for having that in the report, but that's really where my question came from.
Councillor Sharon.
Thanks, Chair Phillip. I concur with what Mayor Scott is commenting on, because I was quite, how do I say? I think the message that our Chief Executive Corin has put in the front of that strategy, the draft strategy, is a very powerful message that he personally will be ensuring that the organisation is led, that the appropriate behaviours are modelled, and particularly what Mayor Scott was referring to is that we will find ways to hold staff and ourselves to account for ensuring that we expect nothing less than the highest level of attention when it comes to health and safety. So just to comment, the strategy I think captures everything. Great piece of work and very strong statement at the start, Corin. So thank you for crafting that.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I was going to ask Councillor Sharon, with that, would you actually like to move the recommendation? No.
Certainly would. Thank
Sorry?
you, Chair Phillip.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Next item, 7.10, page 183, our delegations and financial controls. Ellie.
Thank you, Chair Phillip. I'll take the report as read. It's basically just to put in front of the committee the controls, checks and balances that are in place for delegations to council officers, and to provide a copy of the current financial delegations for your information. Noting at your last meeting we reported that we have a project underway to bring together the separate policy, delegations register and financial delegations into one delegations manual, and then that would be worked through with the committee as well as the Mayor prior to being brought to Council for adoption.
Any questions? I've got.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for Ellie for the report. Certainly something I've been quite interested in, so it was great to see how it sits now. I do have some questions and perhaps some concerns with the delegations as they sit. But before I jump into that, I acknowledge that we have a new Chief Executive that has just started. So through you, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could ask the Chief Executive for his reflections on the current delegations.
Very appropriate that we do that. Thank you. Thank you, Corin. Actually, I didn't officially welcome you, my bad, at the beginning, but I did talk to you a couple of times, 3 times before the meeting. So we have been in communication, team.
Indeed, and thank you for your official welcome as well. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. And so, you know, the report's in 2 parts, right? So the first part, I think, you know, quite well and clearly explains out why we have delegations, and the, you know, the reason being to enable both the correct checks and balances, but also for the operations, the business to actually function. In terms of the financial delegations as they currently sit, I do have some concerns, especially around some of the wording and what permission that gives both to the Chief Executive and to the GMs, because it flows down in that space as well. So I certainly are not comfortable with the way they currently sit, and would like to look at that wording and change that wording to what I believe is appropriate, which is really obviously having a financial delegation, but then being very clear that where the council has approved a piece of work, that within that financial bucket, that's what we're talking about, not quite an open-ended permission to the Chief Executive, and through that some of the GMs to go beyond what council is aware of or thinks that they've already approved.
Thank you, Corin. Right, I concur. Right, I also right even right. I don't normally highlight stuff in flashing colours, but that was something that I go, oh my goodness, right? Right, I have seen it before, and my experience is where ultimately that doesn't end well for council, right? So yeah, thank you for bringing that, confirming that we're on the same page, right?
And just to speak further to that, right? I mean, the relationship between delegations come from governance down to the chief executive and then are delegated down, right? That is a relationship of trust, and that's a relationship based on communications. So for me, anything that creates an environment where elected members could be surprised by what has been agreed to or spent is not a position that I want us to be in.
Yeah, so I assume that we're talking about clause 5.52. Yeah, which is, I was going to ask the question, was there any limit on what the three officers were able to expend without, if that wasn't in the long-term plan and the annual plan? So I couldn't see any, when I looked through the delegations tables, to say that there was anything specific around that, because maybe there is a need to have that in there, but it would have to obviously be a very small amount, like $10,000, $20,000 or something, but I don't know. So obviously, I was just asking if there was a current limit is my question, I guess.
Through you, Chair, it looks very open-ended to me. That was my interpretation of it when I first read it. So that is what I'm focusing in on. For me, what I'm used to is a situation where there's a clear delegation that any officer can sign to, and then a understanding that if what has been agreed to in the LTP as a financial bucket for a piece of work or project, if that is exceeded, there might be a small tolerance in terms of percentage, which enables the chief executive to quickly make a decision which isn't material. But anything beyond that is, in my view, not appropriate and should be coming back to council for approval.
Yeah, I mean, I worked in an organisation a long time ago, and we had that very principle. But also we added, not only there was a small percentage of allowance, it was a very small amount, but whenever there was any over expenditure or additional expenditure, and I can see Sarah nodding her head here because it does affect finance, that we clearly identify where that additional funding was going to come from before it's actually spent, right? Finance, right, putting my ex-bean counter hat on, the last thing finance needs is to say is we've got all this extra money we now need to find, and we've got no way of paying for it from a funding perspective, which people forget about. But thank you for that, Corin. I look forward to the revised delegations in future.
I was just going to say again, just a nod to our Democracy Services team. So when I started, although I come from a background in local government, they were still very careful to step through the principles of delegation with me, right? The first question is, I can, but should I? And what are the implications of that? And one of those implications is clearly if you're exercising authority to go over by 5% or whatever, where is that money? As well as also there's a political lens here too, right? So by choosing to do this, am I exposing the council in some way, and should that be discussed?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if you have further comments, but I'm just wondering if I could test a way forward with you of a potential motion. And I know the recommendation there is that we receive this, and thank you. I know I've been asking for this, so I'm grateful to have received it, although slightly concerned when I did. So my request, and I'll put it in a motion in a second, I just want to make sure it's appropriate with you, but I would like this to come to the next council, so not the one that we've got this month, but May's council meeting, to ask the Chief Executive to review the delegations in consultation with the independent chair of Audit and Risk, who has seen good and bad delegations, and to present a revised proposal for council in our May council meeting. Would that be appropriate for this meeting, Mr. Chair?
Well, I'm comfortable with it. Are the committee members comfortable? Would be the other question I would pose back to the committee, and I think Councillor Sharon's got her hand up.
Thanks, Chair Phillip, for the opportunity. I completely concur. Prior to Mayor Scott proposing this, my begging question was, how quickly do we need to sort this out? We can't wait for the next Risk and Assurance Committee meeting to do this, because of some of the decisions that are going to have to be made very quickly as we look to crafting our LTP. So I would support what Mayor Scott is saying. I think this needs to be dealt with ASAP, and I would concur with the suggestion that you, Chair Phillip, are involved in checking off what our Chief Executive is going to be proposing. So I will support this motion, even though he hasn't said it yet.
Just before we do that, is there any comments from Councillor Elizabeth and Councillor Peter on this? All good? All right. Look, I'm really happy to provide that role. Right? And I totally agree with what Councillor Sharon has said. We need to move this as soon as possible. But hearing from the Chief Executive and his philosophy, I don't see it's urgent, but it's important we deal with from a transparency perspective as soon as possible. And I'm really comfortable it's not brought back to this committee on the basis the committee have raised it. It's now it's up to council to actually approve the delegations. Our job is one of oversight and review to say, are they appropriate? We've highlighted some stuff that's not appropriate. We're now taking action, and I'm very comfortable with that. So, Mayor Scott, I'm very happy to receive your motion.
No, thank you very much. And just to be clear, this isn't a concern over our Chief Executive or the staff that have had these delegations delegated down to. It is more making sure that we have a very, very important tool as a council at a level that we feel comfortable with, and I take heart in the fact that the Chief Executive has commented he doesn't feel comfortable with it as it stands. So I would like to move recommendation 1.1 and then add a further motion that this committee requests that the financial delegations are reviewed by the Chief Executive in consultation with the independent chair of Audit and Risk, and brought back to the May council meeting for discussion and decision.
Clarify about the wording there. It should actually be risk insurance.
I may, because I do this so often, yes, thank you, risk and assurance, there may be another paper to the council meeting where I change the name of the committee back. Just in terms of pedanticness. No, I appreciate that, but we will see, because I seem to be doing it a lot.
Do I have a seconder? I think Councillor, Can you see? Oh, you can see. Oh, yes, you can see it behind. Okay, cool. So larger than life, yes. All right, so you're seconding it. Do you want to speak to the motion, or you've already spoken to the motion? She's already spoken. Any further comments? All right. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is the privacy breach on item 7.1 on page 195. Thank you again, Ali.
Thank you, Chair Phillip. I'll take the report as read. It's outlining 2 recent Privacy Act breaches and the actions taken in response to those breaches and the outcome of assessing those, which neither of them needed to be escalated to the Office of the Privacy Commissioner.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? So do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Elizabeth. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Can I have a mover? We move into public excluded. Mayor Scott. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Let's go back to live. No further business and public excluded. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance, and thank you, staff.